It's been about a year since the last installment of Australia's greatest series, which of course means I've given the dumb criminals of Australia another year to come up with some more content for me to ridicule. But I thought I'd change it up for this installment and focus solely on dumb criminals stealing cars. Because rather unsurprisingly, the people stealing people's cars aren't that bright to begin with. And hoo-wee do I have some belters. Anyway, that's enough waffle, let's get into it. Starting off with one of the best, the Dan Murphy's handbrake selfie debacle. It was just another overcast day at the front of Uncle Dan's, when all of a sudden, the hero of this story, Adam Breen, spotted something a little bit fishy. A Mazda CX-5 with panel damage, no number plates, doing squats in the car. Now if the missing number plates didn't give it away already, this car is obviously stolen. But it gets better. The genius behind the wheel realises that he's been made, and has to make a quick getaway. Now he's already half parked over the disabled spot, which just adds to the shit tally. But a quick getaway is not what he will be doing, because this crook has met his match. The Mazda CX-5 handbrake. I don't know what has gone on here. I assume he's gone into Dan Murphy's, stole a bunch of merchandise and helped himself to some of it on the way out. The funny thing is he would have stolen this car and driven it to Dan Murphy's. You can tell by the bumper hanging off and all the panel damage that this car's been thrashed already by the crooks. Literally all he has to do is put down the handbrake and he's off at the races. Now I've drank a few beers in my lifetime, and I'm not saying that I drink drive, but brother, come on. He would have pulled up the handbrake to park this car before he went in to steal. And look, credit where credit's due, he is following the roadwork signs, but I can't say it's exactly by choice. Now that video was 1 minute long, and surprise surprise, no, he didn't learn his lesson. Now this isn't the end of this story. Obviously he doesn't drive off over the horizon into the sunset. Now after getting stranded in the right hand turning lane, still unable to figure out the handbrake, he hops out, where him and Adam have a brief argument.
So he tried to run. I just sort of said to him, you probably won't outrun me. He turned around, dropped his stuff, and then sort of arced up to me, and I said, you probably won't outfight me either.
The footage goes dark from here, but the next thing we see is the culprit in a headlock by Big Adam himself. First off, we have a selfie, then a bystander took a photo from a distance so Adam could get the thumbs up in, and that's the end of our story. The car thief was presumably let out on bail to do it all over again. Adam became a national hero and even got interviewed on the news.
My left testicle was in some severe pain.
And there was no speeding in the roadwork zone. However, despite the black eye, the silver lining is that Dan Murphy's decided to chop Adam out and give him some free drinks.
Hey, I hope you got those drinks on the house for your efforts too.
Yeah, Dan Murphy's did sort me out with some drinks.
Anyway, moving on to our next one. Now, while these carjackers somehow weren't as successful as the first guy, this story is just as ridiculous. As you can see here, Pinky and Perky tried to hijack a truck. Now, obviously they weren't planning to do any getaways in it because that's not the right car for the job, but I assume they were just trying to raid it for the cargo. However, when your diet consists purely of methamphetamine and Mountain Dew, it can be quite hard to put up a fight. As Dumb and Dumber quickly found out when the truck driver returned and basically beat the shit out of him. Now in true car thief fashion, these two shit stains tried to get back into their stolen car and flee from the scene. However, this truck driver wasn't going to let him get off that easy, and he came charging at him with the spirit level. Now, obviously the spirit level isn't exactly the first choice in a melee weapon, but as you can see here, it did quite the job. However, after this debacle, I wouldn't really say that this spirit level is up to the job of leveling out paintings on the wall, but of course Tweedledee and Tweedledum tried to show him up with their own weapon, an acoustic guitar. However, Bruno Mars didn't get too far before he was once again thumped over the noggin with a spirit level, and this guy's reaction to the whole situation basically sums it all up.
That's sick! That's awesome!
Now, if those first two that we just reviewed didn't tell you enough, 99% of Australia's car thieves are either junkies or teenagers. Pretty much anyone who owns an item of hood-rich clothing and can't pass a Year 5 spelling test. Now, those first two were pretty incompetent, but this one brings incompetence to the next level. The Freeway. One of the easiest roads to drive on in the world. What you basically want to do is just drive in a straight line at the same speed. There's no traffic lights, no pedestrians to run into. However, this next one managed to absolutely defy the laws of logic, physics, and the Holden Commodore by managing to flip it on its lid on the freeway. Now obviously you can see at the start of the dashcam video that this car is absolutely mint, so I assume the Ice King slammed into him at Mark 3 and that was the reason for the crash. Now the news report doesn't say that this car is stolen, but this here is a VF SS Commodore, the most stolen car in Australia at the moment. And judging by the look of the guy behind the wheel, I can't imagine he's got much to put on his resume. Anyway, after he manages to clamber out of his upturned VF Commodore with merely a flesh wound, as you know, methamphetamine creates a sort of force force field around all the users and they're just immune to injury somehow. He ruffles around on the roof of the car trying to find his gear, I assume. And instead of hanging around, he goes from Holden Commodore to the Foot Falcons and just guns it down the freeway, leaving someone else's car upturned and fucked in the middle of the freeway, traffic chaos, and probably hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage behind him. Now next up of course is to be the most infamous junkie car theft story of all time. The story goes Jimmy the junkie jumped out of his car at an RBT in Newcastle, runs straight into someone's house and steals the key to an Audi R8. Now I get that this was just an opportunistic crime, but you're forgetting that junkies are very stupid, and to be honest we're lucky that no one was killed. But the owner of this Audi R8 did have a dash cam installed, which luckily for us filmed the entire thing. Here are some of the highlights. It starts off with him absolutely caning the R8 that he just stole, past the car he just dumped and ran from and the highway patrol officers actively looking for him. Then he basically just takes us on a joyride tour of the local housing commission estates with absolutely zero mechanical sympathy, slowly destroying the car as he flogs it around Newcastle. Some of the highlights of this junkie joyride include a few classic COD Zombies voice line recitals, jumping speed bumps at 80 k's an hour in an extremely low supercar. At this point he hits two curbs one after the other, effectively destroying the entire front suspension and wheel setup. He then takes it to his mate's house and after almost hitting the cat, tells the story about his escape from the RBT and his mate who got done and all his gear taken off him.
You know what I've lost all my gear. They got a fucking car, they got everything sold. They're ripping the other car apart. His mate got done the poor cunt, eh? Yeah. Then the other booze cunts, the booze bus. But you know what I'm gonna say? You know what I'm gonna say when I get pinched because I've got nothing to lose, I'm gonna say to him, I threatened that young bloke not to stop, mate. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the old story. Alright, I must prosper a little bit more.
Then after almost running his mate over, he continues on his joyride. However, at this point the car's completely cooked and the rear wheel is hanging off, as you can see by the smoke coming out of the rear end and the fact that the car's all over the road. So naturally what he does next is a 1000 IQ move and drives the car straight to his house, where he leaves a black line of tyre straight to his driveway, where of course we get our first look of the geezer behind the wheel. Now despite the fact that he looks like he's pissed himself, it gets even more ridiculous as he drives straight through his gate, ripping it off the hinges. And then the next thing that we see is the owner and the police finally recovering the vehicle, which believe it or not wasn't that hard since he left a breadcrumb trail straight to his house, where it's finally recovered and revealed that it was done over $100,000 worth of damage. You gotta love junkies. What would we do without them? Insurance would certainly be a whole lot cheaper, that's for sure. It just baffles me how he managed to get this much seat time in without the cops managing to stop him. It's not like he was going anywhere in a hurry after the first 5 minutes after he completely minced the whole car. But there you go. Moral of the story, don't do drugs, and if you're gonna steal an R8, don't bounce it over speed humps and off the curbs. And don't leave a skid mark trail straight to the house that you dumped it at. Now next up we're gonna talk about the infamous Northland Shopping Centre mall crawler incident. Now if you're from Australia, there's no doubt you would have seen this footage before of a white 200 series Land Cruiser canning it down the main strip of the Northland shopping centre, straight through the doors and off into the sunset. Now 2 weeks before this whole incident, this Land Cruiser was stolen from a family home in Ivanhoe, when they finally caught up to it 2 weeks later in the Northland shopping centre car park. Now the car was apparently boxed in by the police, so with nowhere to go the driver decided to do the most logical thing and escape through the shopping centre. And if you've ever wondered how they managed to get those cars inside of the shopping centre, here's your answer. They usually do it with a little bit more care though. They even managed to get a witness account from this man who just got off his flight, was getting a haircut, and all of a sudden this happened behind him. The Land Cruiser also showed off the effectiveness of these anti-car barriers. An hour later he then dumped it at the Northcote shopping centre and was arrested the next day. What an idiot. Next up we're going to look into this Ford Ranger driver getting the fright of his life. Now a bit of context, apparently these two cars are having a bit of a road rage incident, and well there's more than enough evidence out there that Ford Ranger drivers are complete and utter fuckwits. Don't believe me? Watch this.
Get the f*** out of the car. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? I'll f*** smash. Get out of the car, you f*** spastic. I'll fucking rape you, you weak.
Anyway, for some reason this guy on the footpath started filming it, and he wasn't happy. So after chucking a right-hand turn with no indicator, while yelling out the window and almost hitting a couple pedestrians, he stopped his Ford Ranger in the middle of the road. He then got out and started arguing with him, telling him that he'd steal his missus,
I'll steal your missus, boy.
and offering her quite a generous hourly rate.
For $1,000 an hour? Yeah, exactly.
But you see, as this clown was performing his circus act, there was something brewing in the background. Jimmy the junkie and his trolley. Now you see, opportunities like this don't come up up very often. A $100,000 car with the door open and the keys in the ignition. All it was missing was the red bow. So Jimmy ditched the trolley and helped himself to his brand new Ford Ranger. As you know, finders keepers, losers weepers. However, unfortunately, just like most of the criminals in this video, he was also a fuckwit and couldn't figure out how to drive off with the car, giving Larry Loudmouth the chance to catch up, tell him to piss off, and get his car. It's hard to feel bad for the Ford Ranger driver in this situation, considering all the pain and suffering they've conflicted on all of Australia throughout the years, but I'm sure the cameraman's missus will be having second thoughts about taking up his generous offer after he was absolutely humiliated. Next up, I want to talk about 2 cases of people stealing cars fitted with the millennial anti-theft device. First off, we got this junkie here who stole a car from a car park. However, he couldn't drive manual. He sort of did seem to figure it out. However, instead of changing gear, he pulled up the handbrake, did a fucking 180, and that was that. And of course, there's this instance of a 17-year-old girl trying to steal a manual Toyota Yaris. She stole it, left it in this position here, and was arrested and charged. Unfortunately, this is the only photo I've got, but it did happen. We also have all the instances of people stealing police cars, which is literally the most stupid thing you can do since they've all got trackers on them. We got this guy mentioned in a recent video who stole a highway patrol car and crashed it. If you're gonna steal a cop car, you're not gonna get away with it, but I'm sure the 5 minutes of freedom you get will be worth it when you're stuck in prison for 15 years. But just the other day, one of the greatest car theft stories in all of Australia's history hit the front page. Now, unfortunately, not much of it is on video. However, the best part is, but you'll have to wait for that. The story goes a 15-year-old boy in Canberra stole a Toyota Land Cruiser. Now, this one wasn't taken to the Northland shopping centre, because that's over an 8-hour drive, and lightning doesn't strike in the same place twice. However, shortly after this car was stolen, police spotted it speeding erratically. Shortly after, the car was abandoned in Warramunga, and the 15-year-old boy fled on foot. Now, the police tracked him and found his hiding spot, and well, I don't think I really need to say much. It was all captured on dash cam. You know what they say? A picture speaks 1,000 words. Talk about taking out the trash. But this isn't the first time a car thief has been caught hiding in a bin. In 2022, a major figure in Melbourne's underworld was ambushed by 2 gunmen in stolen cars. Now, I'll admit it, this is a bit more of a serious crime compared to the other shit we've been talking about in this video. However, when the gunmen fled after crashing the stolen getaway car, the 2 men jumped out and escaped on foot. One of them hijacked another car to get away with, and the other ran straight to the Colonel's kitchen and hid in a wheelie bin. However, he was sort of smart enough to figure out this wouldn't work, and after a while he left and escaped. As far as I know, he's still at large and escaped overseas, where the police are actively hunting for him. Moral of the story, wheelie bins aren't a really good getaway plan. And of course, how could I not mention the junkie couple that stole the Mercedes, almost ran over a police officer, then ran a red light reversing the roles on this Ford Ranger, shit mixing this poor bloke's Trident, and then hitting legs. I've already covered this one in this video here, so if you want to see an in-depth analysis, go check it out. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed this video, you'll probably enjoy one of these too. If there's enough interest, I might do more of Australia's dumbest criminals focusing on specific categories. Thank you to all my supporters on Patreon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share, and I'll see all of you guys in the next one.